Court is in session. We will be reviewing the case of if viruses are living or not. We have the defendant, the virus, and the prosecutor, biologist. We will be reviewing the 8 characteristics of life to determine if viruses are living or not. The first characteristic of a living organism is that it is made up of one or more cells. What is your argument?
Okay, so my argument is that viruses are not made up of cells at all. A single virus is called a viron, and it is simply made up of DNA or RNA that is covered by a protein code. Viruses do not fit into this characteristic of life, and this is one of the many reasons I believe they are not living organisms. The electron microscope was invented in 1931 by Ernest Ruska and Max Knoll. It was a very important invention for the research of the structure of the viruses. They were finally able to look closely at viruses and prove that they were not cellular organisms with parts such as a nucleus.
Does the defendant have an argument?
No, sir.
The next point we'll be speaking of is if the virus displays organization. What do you have to say about this?
I have no argument on this characteristic of life.
Defendant?
Although I do not have an organized cell structure, I do display many types of organization. My genes are made up of nucleic acid, and I have smaller building blocks called capsomers. Capsomers are what make up the protein coat surrounding my nucleic acid and keep me protected. This shows that viruses surely display organization and that I have multiple moving parts that work together to create the final product.
Okay. I will note that down. The third topic of this evening will be on reproduction. What do you have to say about this?
Viruses are able to reproduce by hijacking the cells of a host organism. Once the virus latches onto the host cell, it injects its DNA into the host cell. The host cell then uses that genetic information to produce thousands of virons. This is still a form of reproduction that builds completely new viruses.
Do you have a counter-argument?
Yes, I do. Viruses by themselves are not able to reproduce. They do not have organelles, nuclei, or ribosomes, or any tools that are able to copy their genes, much less produce their own virons. They must solely rely on a host cell to assist in reproduction. There has also been microscope research done that supports my opinion, as they are able to see the individual virus particles inside of cells reproducing. Using newer technology called cryo-electron microscopy, scientists have been able to freeze viruses and view their actions and behavior with clarity throughout the entire reproduction process. Because of the invention of these types of microscopes, we are able to prove with certainty how viruses reproduce.
The next topic will be whether viruses respond to stimuli or not. Who would like to open?
I'll open this topic. Viruses do not respond to stimuli, in my opinion. This is because they do not respond immediately or change behavior in any way to stimuli like touch, sound, or light, the way that most other living organisms do.
Well, what I have to say about this is there have not been enough studies to show significant evidence that viruses do not respond to stimuli. More research would need to be done to come to a conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Now that we're halfway done, we'll take a short intermission to relieve yourselves. Court is back in session. The next topic will be on whether viruses require energy or not.
Viruses do require energy to reproduce. They use metabolism from the host cell to produce thousands of virons.
I personally disagree. All of the energy used during a virus's reproduction process solely comes from the host cell. All other living things use their own metabolism and rely on an energy source to survive. Virons do not require energy to survive on a day-to-day basis. They do require energy to reproduce. It's just not their own energy. It comes from the host cell. Microscope research was done at the University of Würzburg with a microscope to differentiate between dormant and active cells. By proving that viruses enter a dormant stage called lysogenic, we are able to prove that they can sustain themselves without using any energy at all.
The next topic will be on whether viruses maintain homeostasis or not. Would anyone like to speak on this matter?
No, sir, I do not have an argument.
I have an argument. Viruses do not have a nuclei, organelles, or cytoplasm like other cells do. They have no way to monitor or change their internal environment. They do not maintain homeostasis, as it is literally impossible for them to change or react to their external environment.
The next matter is whether viruses contain hereditary material or not. Do you have anything to say?
No, sir, I have nothing to say about this.
I do. All viruses contain hereditary material that is identical to the DNA or RNA passed on from the virus that attached to the cell. Even the simplest viruses contain enough DNA or RNA to encode for proteins.
Are there any closing arguments remaining?
Yes, I have an opinion on the eighth and final characteristic of life if the organism grows and develops. It is a fact that all living things grow. Viruses hijack host cells and build new viruses, which means the viron is created in its fully formed state. It will never increase in size or become any more complex throughout its entire existence. Viruses do not display any type of growth, and this is another major reason why I believe they are not a living organism.
The microscope was a key component in determining this case. It has allowed us to have a deeper look into how viruses reproduce and hijack an organism's host cell. The invention of the microscope was crucial in allowing mankind to truly see the smaller building blocks, such as cells and all of their parts, that create the larger picture of life. By researching and using microscopes to view viruses, we were able to discover that viruses were not in fact made of cells, and therefore not living. Without microscopes, our perception of life would be completely different, as we would not understand the fundamentals of life, such as growth, reproduction, and structure. The microscope allowed us to define what life truly is and observe the behavior and structure of cells. This is how we ultimately know why a virus is a non-living organism. Based on the evidence provided, it's clear that viruses are non-living. After thoroughly reviewing all the information provided, I have came to the conclusion that viruses are non-living.
Yes.
This court case is closed.